We continue now at the top of Daf Yomi Aleph from Meseches Moed Kattan. This is Moed Kattan Daf 10a. The Mishnah said, "Hahedyo tofer kedarko," that on Chol Moed, somebody who is not a professional, he's allowed to sew in the normal manner. Rashi over here says, "Tofer kedarko b'cholo shel Moed." Again, we're talking about Chol Moed. Gemara says, "Hechi dami hedyot." What do we mean when we talk about somebody who's a hedyot, who's not a professional in terms of sewing? So Amri devei Rabbi Yanai, they said in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yanai, "Kol she'eno yachol lahotzi mole machat bevas achas." Anyone who can't take a needleful in one shot. Rashi over here says, "Moli machat bevas achas she'eno yachol lilkot nime hatfira shel cholok." He's not able to collect the various threads of whatever garment kedei litfor. He can't collect them together to sew them. Kishu tofer tochev techivos harbe. Kemole orach hamachat v'yachar kach moshcha min habeged v'nimtzu tfiros harbe b'meshicha achas. What they're able to do is they're able to take all these threads and in one shot they can pull it through, stretch it through the beged, and you've done a bunch of sewings in one shot. Someone who's able to do that, that's called an uman, that's called a professional. If you're not able to do that, you are not a professional. Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina says, "Kol she'eno yochel lechavin imra b'chefes chaluko." It means somebody's not able to take, when he's sewing in the hem of his garment, he can't make it straight. He's not able to do it in a straight fashion. Rashi over here says, "She'eni yochel lechavin imra b'chefes chaluko, she'eni yodei litchov oso beged of she'osun mimenu imra b'chefes chaluko." They would use this garment, a thick garment, to make the hem of a garment. Ela sheb'makom echad mekatzro v'makom echad marchivo. So he's not able to do it again straight. In one area it's a little short, in one area it's a little wider. So that's somebody who's not considered an uman, not considered professional. Gemara continues, "Vo uman machliv." The Mishnah said that the person who is professional, he has to stitch in a temporary fashion. My machliv, what exactly does that mean? Machliv, Rabbi Yochanan Amar mafsia. Rabbi Yochanan says it means mafsia. Rashi says, "Mafsia she'eno tofer biyosher ela mefazer hatfira." He doesn't sew in a straight fashion. He scatters around the various stitches. It now looks like the various stitches, they look like the teeth of a dog. They're kind of distant from each other. Rabba Bar Shmuel Amar Shine Kalbasa. Rabba Bar Shmuel says, like the teeth of a dog. And Rashi says to that, "Kalbasa she'eno tofer kedarko tochev zeh b'samach zeh." He's not sewing one right next to the other in the normal fashion. Ela shetochev hamachad pa'amachas lamala. He does one a little bit above, upamachas lamata, the other one a little bit below. That's how the teeth of a dog are. One tooth is higher than the other tooth. So again, you're stitching or sewing in a fashion that is not the normal straight fashion. You're either doing it in a scattered fashion or you're doing up and down. Again, not evenly. The Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, "Mesargen es hamitos." You're allowed to interweave the cords on the bed frame. They would put the cords on, and then above the cords, they would put the mattress. And Rabbi Yossi said in the Mishnah, you're not allowed to do that. All you're allowed to do is tighten the cords. So the Gemara says, "My mesargen umay mematchin." What exactly does mesargen mean, and what does mematchin mean? Kiyasar Rav Dimi Amr, when Rav Dimi came, he said, "Pligi bar Rav Chia bar Abba v'Ravasi," that this is a machlokas between Rav Chia bar Abba and Ravasi. Utarvayu mishmei dechizki v'Rav Yochanan. Both of them were quoting Chizki and Rav Yochanan. Chad Amar Mesargen Shasiva Erev. One of them says that Mesargen means when you're weaving it, it means that you're doing the cords that run lengthwise on the bed frame and the ones that run widthwise. Umematchin Shasi below Erev. And Mematchin, which is Rabbi Yossi's opinion, that means that you're only doing the cords that run the length of the frame, but not the ones that go the width of the frame. The Chadam, on the other opinion, says Mesargen Shasi below Erev. Mesargen actually means that you're doing just the cords that are lengthwise and not widthwise. Umematchin, and Mematchin means Shem Haya Rafai Mematcho, that if it was loose, if the cord was loose, you can tighten it. But according to this opinion, Rabbi Yossi does not allow you to add any new cords. In other words, according to the second opinion, the first Tana of the Mishnah holds you can add in cords lengthwise but not widthwise. And Rabbi Yossi says, no, you can't add any cords, you can only tighten them. In the first opinion, the machlokas was that the first opinion of the Mishnah says that you can do lengthwise and widthwise, and then Rabbi Yossi says, no, you can only do lengthwise. And the Gemara continues, Ini, is this really true? V'atani Rav Tachlifa Bar Shol, but Rav Tachlifa Bar Shol taught, V'shav and shein mafshilin chavolim lechatchila. Both Tanoim agree, this is both Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi. First Tana in our Mishnah is Rabbi Meir, and then Rabbi Yossi is the one who disagrees in our Mishnah. Both of them agree that you're not allowed to braid the ropes in the first place. In other words, if these cords, which you're putting on the bed frame, haven't yet been created, you're not allowed to create those in the first place on Chol Moed. So the Gemara now says, I understand, according to the one who says that misargin means you're allowed to put them onto the frame in both directions, lengthwise and widthwise. And mimatzchin, according to Rabbi Yossi, that means you're allowed to do it lengthwise but not widthwise. So hainu the katani Rav Tachlifa Bar Shol. It makes sense then that Rav Tachlifa Bar Shol would add b'shav and shein mafshilin chavalim lechatchila, that everybody agrees you can't fashion the ropes in the first place. But according to the one who says that the most lenient opinion in the Mishnah is that you can do it lengthwise, and mimatchin, what does that mean? That it only means that if the ropes are already there, you can tighten them. You can never put any ropes onto the bed frame. So hashta shasiva erev amrit lo. If this second Tana, let's say Rabbi Yossi, is saying you're not even allowed to do it, or both Tanaim really are saying you're not even allowed to do it in both directions. You cannot put the cords shasi and erev. You can't put it lengthwise and widthwise. So if that's the case, so chavolim lechatchila mi boy. So do you even need to tell us that you can't fashion the ropes in the first place? Of course you cannot fashion the ropes in the first place. If you have even limitations of how you're allowed to put the ropes on the bed frame, and that everybody agrees there's limitations on that, so then certainly you're not allowed to make the ropes in the first place. And to that the Gemara says, Kasha, that is indeed difficult. The Gemara continues, Amar le Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak le Rabbi Chia bar Avin. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said to Rabbi Chia bar Avin, is there really anyone that holds that the word misargin means you can do it only lengthwise and not widthwise? But we learned in the Mishnah, this is a Mishnah Meseches Kalim. Rabbi Meir says, Hamita, when is it considered to be a mita? This is in terms of Hilchas Kalim, in terms of becoming Tameh. When is it really considered to be a mita? Misha Yisrog ba shlosha batim. When you weave there, again, this is 3 ropes, meaning to say you weave it 3 in the lengthwise direction and 3 in the widthwise direction. Clearly, the word Misha Yisrog over here is being used to indicate you're weaving in both directions, lengthwise and widthwise. And so the Gemara says, Ella rather Kiyasa Ravin, when Ravin came, Amar, he said as follows, the Misargin Kuliyamalo Pligi de Shasiva Erev. Everybody agrees that the word Misargin means Shasiva Erev. You're doing it both lengthwise and widthwise. Ella Ki Pligi b'Mematchin. The Machlokas over here really was just, what does the word Mematchin mean? And the Gemara elaborates, Mar Savra, one opinion holds, Mematchin Shasi Below Erev, that the word Mematchin means you're doing it only lengthwise and not widthwise. Mar Savra, and the other one says, no, Shem Hayarafa Mematcha. The word Mematchin means that if it was loose, then you tighten it. Gemara now says, Meisra, we have the following question, Misargin es Hamita, ve'ein sarach lomar Shem Mematchin, and Divrei Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Meir says you're allowed to be Misarig the bed, and certainly you're allowed to be Mematech. And Rabbi Yossi Omer Mematchin, Rabbi Yossi says you can be Mematech, avalo Misargin, but you can't be Misargin. V'yesh Omrim ein Memaschin kolikar. So now over here in this price it adds a yesh omrim, and there are others who say you're not allowed to be Memasech. So now what do all these words mean? So Bishlam Lamad Omrim Memaschin Shasi Below Erev. I understand this whole brisa. If Memaschin means you're allowed to do it lengthwise and not widthwise, so then the whole thing is going to make sense. Misargin means you do both directions. Memaschin means you do one direction. And the Yesh Omrim say you can't even do one direction. Hainu da'asu Yesh Omrim lifluge. That makes sense. The Yesh Omrim are now coming and arguing and saying you're not allowed to be Memasech. You're not allowed to do it even in one direction. But according to the one who says that Memaschin, Rabbi Yossi's Memaschin simply means you're tightening it if it's loose. So Yesh Omrim, according to the Yesh Omrim, Memascho nami lo, are they going so far you're not even allowed to tighten the loose cords? And the Gemara says to that, in yes, kevan de efsher lemimliye b'mani, because there is another solution over here. You can just fill up the area, the gaps, with clothing, so therefore lo tarchinon, therefore you're not allowed to take the bother and tighten it. Rashi over here says, in vaday asu Yesh Omrim lemeisar nami mesuche. Yes, the Yesh Omrim are coming and they're prohibiting even to tighten it. Misham dehol v'efsher lemalya lemita b'mani ad le'el v'hadar matzi lemirma alayo karim v'kistos. You're going to take money, you're going to take clothing, fabric, garments, and put them on the bottom and fill it up. And then put on top of that, you could put pillows and blankets, lemizga alayu, in order to sit upon it. So you can do that, which is much easier. So lo tarchina dehavi tarach de lo tzarech. So therefore, it's a tircha de lo tzarech to go ahead and to tighten the cords. And therefore, according to the Yesh Omrim, you're not allowed to do that on Chol Moed. Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Ma'amidin tanor v'kirayim v'rechayim b'moed. You're allowed to set up an oven and a stove and a mill on Chol Moed. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, "Ein mechavshin es rechayim b'tchila." You're not allowed to chisel the millstones in the first place on Chol Moed. Rashi over here says, "Ma'amidin tanor v'kirayim she'osin osam lechatchila kedamrina lekamon." You're actually going to make them lechatchila. We're going to say that later on. Tanor is tocho cholul. So what is a tanor? That the inside of a tanor is empty. Makom shvisa shtei kederos. That's an area and has enough space that you could put there 2 pots. And kira, what is a kira? Makom shvisas keder achas. That means it has an area where you can place just 1 pot. And mechavshin begemar mefarsh. The Gemara is going to explain exactly what mechavshin is. The Gemara says, "My mechavshin." What does it mean to be chiseling the millstones? Rav Yehuda Amar menake rechaya. Rav Yehuda says menake rechaya. We'll see Rashi in a moment. Rav Yechiel Amar bas eina. Rav Yechiel says bas eina. We'll see Rashi on that as well. Rashi over here says menake rechaya shekeshi yeshana. When the mill is older, v'chalok, it gets smooth. Ve'ena chitin yechol lefarich. So you're trying to put the wheat through the mill, and the stones are grinding the wheat, but the stones are too smooth. They're not able to grind the wheat. So menakrinosa chotchinosa. So what you're doing is menakr means you're really cutting the stones, kedei shelo yehi shaveh, so that they're not smooth, so that there's indentations in the stones. Kedei sheyifrachu hachitin tachteh. That allows that the wheat becomes crushed, it becomes ground beneath the millstones. And then the other opinion, Rav Yechiel said bas eina means the eye hole, means nekev she'osin be'emtza harechaim. There was a hole that they made in the middle of the mill, shatvua nofelis lasocha. That was what the grain, that's what the wheat fell through. So that's what it means over here, according to Rav Yechiel. Mechavshin means you're actually making that hole large enough that the wheat can go through that hole in order to be ground. The Gemara continues, Meisveh, we have a question from the following brayso. So the brayso says, Ma'amidin tanor v'kirayim b'moed. You're allowed to set up an oven and a stove on Chol HaMoed, uvilvad shelo yigmor melachtan, as long as you don't finish setting them up completely. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer, that's Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. The Chachamim omer af yigmor, the Chacham say you can even finish the setup. Rabbi Yehuda omer mishmo, Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, ma'amiden es hachadosha, you're allowed to set up a new mill, umechavshin es hayashana, and you're allowed to chisel in an old mill. V'yesh omer, but others say, ein mechavshin kolikir, you're not allowed to chisel at all. So again, the reason why we're bringing this over here is we want to understand what mechavshin means. So the Gemara says, B'shlam alaman da'amar mechavshin menake rechaya. I understand if you say mechavshin means you're taking the stones, the millstones, and you're carving into them in order to make indentations. So hainu demashkachas la b'yashana. So it makes sense that it says mechavshin es hayashana. You're going to take the stones which have become dull over time, and you're going to sharpen them. Mechavshin would make sense by an old mill. But the one who says baseina, meaning to say that you're going to make the hole where the wheat goes through in order to be ground. So that's not something you would do with an old mill that already has the baseina, that already has the eye hole. That's something you're going to do with a new one. Yeshana baseina lamala. What do you have to work with the eye hole by an old mill that should already have a hole where the wheat is going to fall through? And so to that, the Gemara answers, no, the case very simply is where you need to make that hole a little bit wider. So in such a situation, that can apply to an old one as well. The Gemara continues, Rav Huna shamei lahu gavra d'kamenake rechaya b'chola d'moada. Rav Huna heard there was a certain individual who was chiseling the millstones on Chol HaMoed. Amar, he said, Man hai ischel gufe d'kamachel chola d'moada. Who is this person who's doing this? His body should be desecrated because he's desecrating Chol HaMoed. And the Gemara explains, Savar lo ki yesh omrim. Rav Huna held like the yesh omrim, that you're not allowed to chisel the millstones at all. Just to clarify over here, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you're not allowed in a new mill, you're not allowed to chisel the stones, but by an old mill, let's say they became dull, like we said, you're allowed to chisel. That's the same thing Rabbi Yehuda said in our Mishnah. He said, Ein mechavshin es harechaim b'tchila. If you're doing it with a new one, that's a problem to chisel the stones, but again, with an old one, it is okay. The Yesh Omrim said, Ein mechavshin kol ikr. You're not allowed to do it at all, and that's what Rav Huna was saying. Rav Huna was saying, even by an old one, it's problematic to chisel the stones. That's why the Gemara is saying, Rav Huna held like the Yesh Omrim. And the Gemara continues, Dorash Rav Chama, Darshan, Nokrin, Rechayim, B'moed. You're allowed to cut the grooves in the millstones on Chol HaMoed. Mishum Rabbi Meir Amar, in the name of Rabbi Meir, he said, Afilu sus sharochev olav, even the horse that a person's riding on, v'chamor sharochev olav, or the donkey that a person is riding on, mutter litol tzipornayim b'chol shel moed. You're allowed to cut their nails. What it really means over here is to trim their hooves on Chol HaMoed. Rashi over here says, mutter litol lahen tzipornayim kederach ha'osan achshav l'susum shalanu. Rashi says, we do this to our horses nowadays. Di lo avid hachi havelet tzara v'lo motzi yazel. If you didn't do this to the horse or to the donkey, then they have too much pain, and you're not even able to ride upon them. And we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Amud Beis.